Do you know how many hours a typical Kenyan works in a week? It's an intriguing question, isn't it? Now let's dive right into it. In Kenya, the standard work week is typically 52 hours long. Yes, you heard that right, 52 hours. This is considerably more than the global average, demonstrating a robust work culture. So, how is this time divided? Well, the week is split into 6 working days from Monday to Saturday. Each day, Kenyans work a maximum of 9 hours, except for Saturday, when they work for 5 hours. This breakdown creates a rhythm of work that Kenyans are quite accustomed to. It's a testament to their dedication and commitment to their jobs. And there you have it. That's the standard work week for a typical Kenyan. Quite a lot, isn't it? So it's clear that Kenyans have a robust work culture. But how does this compare to the rest of the world? Stay tuned to find out. To appreciate Kenya's work culture, one must compare it to other countries. So, let's take a journey around the globe and examine the working hours in a few select nations. We'll begin in the United States, where the standard work week is typically 40 hours spread over 5 days. It's quite common for Americans to work beyond this, but it's not a mandate. Next, we jet off to Germany, a country known for its efficiency. The German work week is considerably shorter, averaging around 35 to 40 hours. It's worth noting that Germany has strict laws limiting the amount of overtime an employee can work, emphasizing the importance of work-life balance. Our journey continues to China, where the standard work week is also 40 hours. However, it's not uncommon for many Chinese workers to put in extra hours. The culture often promotes hard work and dedication, which can sometimes blur the lines between work and personal time. Finally, we land in Japan, a nation infamous for its long working hours. The legal limit is 40 hours per week, but the reality can be much different. The term karoshi, which translates to death by overwork, emerged in Japan, highlighting the severity of their work culture. In comparison, Kenya's standard work week is capped at 52 hours, spread over 6 days. This might seem high, but it's important to remember that every country has its unique circumstances and cultural norms. This brief worldwide tour reveals a wide spectrum of standard work hours. From the comparatively relaxed German work week to the intense hours in Japan, we see a diversity of approaches to work. These differences highlight the varying cultural values, economic factors, and historic traditions that shape how nations view work and leisure. In conclusion, work cultures, just like cultures in general, vary greatly around the world. They're influenced by a multitude of factors, ranging from societal norms to national laws. It's fascinating to see how different countries balance work and life, and it's an important consideration for international businesses. As we can see, work cultures vary greatly around the world. Now let's dive into overtime regulations. Working overtime is common in many professions, but how is it regulated in Kenya? Let's dive into the heart of it. In Kenya, the standard working hours are 44 to 52 hours in a week, depending on the nature of the job. However, anything beyond these standard hours is considered overtime, so if you're working in Kenya and find yourself clocking in more than this, you're in the realm of overtime work. Now here's where it gets interesting. The law in Kenya stipulates that overtime should not exceed 104 hours in a month. That's a safeguard to ensure that workers are not overworked, preserving their health and productivity. So what happens when you do work beyond the standard hours? Well, the Kenyan Employment Act provides for overtime pay. For the hours worked beyond the standard hours during the week, the workers are entitled to 1.5 times their normal hourly rate. This is called time and a half. And if you're working on your rest day or public holidays, you'll be compensated at double your normal hourly rate. That's twice as much as you'd usually make. This is known as double time pay. But remember, these regulations are not just about compensation. They are primarily designed to protect workers from exploitation and to ensure their well-being. These laws strike a balance between the need for productivity in the workforce and the necessity of rest for the workers. It's also important to note that these regulations apply to all workers, whether they are full-time, part-time, or casual workers. So, no matter what your employment status is in Kenya, you're covered by these regulations. So there you have it, the nuts and bolts of Kenya's overtime regulations. They're all about ensuring fair working conditions and adequate compensation for those extra hours that you put in. Overtime regulations in Kenya are designed to protect workers, but how do they stack up against other countries? That's a question for the next scene. Stay tuned as we delve into a comparison of international overtime regulations. Just like standard work hours, overtime regulations vary from country to country. Now let's dive into the world of overtime regulations. In the United States, the Fair Labor Standards Act stipulates that employees must receive 1.5 times their regular rate for any hours worked over 40 in a work week. However, some states like California require overtime pay for any hours worked over 8 in a day. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic in the United Kingdom, things are a bit different. There's no statutory right to receive extra pay for overtime, though many employers do offer higher rates. The European Working Time Directive, however, does cap the average working week at 48 hours, including overtime. In Australia, the Fair Work Act provides a detailed guide for overtime pay, which typically ranges from 1.5 times to double the standard pay rate, depending on the number of extra hours and when they're worked. And in Japan, overtime work, or zangyo, is a common part of work culture. Japanese law stipulates that employees should receive at least 1.25 times their regular wage for overtime, with increased rates for late night and holiday work. However, a phenomenon known as service overtime, unpaid overtime work, often goes unreported. In contrast, Kenya has a more structured approach to overtime. The Employment Act stipulates that any work done beyond the normal 45 hours per week should be paid at 1.5 times the normal rate for weekdays, and twice the normal rate for Sundays and public holidays. What stands out in this comparison is the wide variety of approaches to overtime. From the strict hour caps in Europe to the unregulated overtime in the UK, from the detailed guides in Australia to the widespread zangyo in Japan, and the structured approach in Kenya, it's clear that overtime regulations are as diverse as the countries themselves. It's clear that overtime regulations are a crucial part of work culture. But what about rest and break periods? Work is important, but so is rest. How does Kenya ensure workers get adequate breaks? It's all about balance, and in Kenya, the law has provisions for this. Every employee is entitled to at least one rest day in every 7-day period. That's right, a full day to recharge and prepare for the week ahead. Now let's talk about those precious lunch breaks. In Kenya, workers are entitled to a 1-hour lunch break after a continuous work period of 5 hours. This is not just a suggestion, it's a legal requirement. Employers must allow employees this time to rest and refuel. Additionally, Kenya observes public holidays, which provide employees additional rest periods throughout the year. These holidays vary, but they typically include occasions like New Year's Day, Labor Day, and Independence Day, among others. Rest and break periods are essential for worker well-being. Now you are equipped with the knowledge about work hours and overtime in Kenya and how it compares to the rest of the world. So, what have we learned about Kenya's work culture? We started our journey by exploring the standard working hours in Kenya. As we have learned, the typical work week in Kenya consists of 40 hours spread across 5 days. This is a common structure shared by many countries across the globe. However, it's crucial to note that these standard hours can vary depending on the industry, type of work, and specific agreements between employers and employees. From there, we delved into the realm of overtime. We learned that Kenya has specific regulations to manage and compensate for hours worked beyond the standard 40. In Kenya, any work done beyond the normal hours must be compensated at 1.5 times the normal hourly rate. This becomes double for work done on weekends and public holidays. Quite an incentive, don't you think? But Kenya is not alone in this. We compared these practices with international overtime regulations and found that similar principles are followed in many parts of the world. However, the specifics can vary greatly, reflecting each country's unique labor laws and cultural norms. Then we took a refreshing break, quite literally, as we discussed rest and break periods in Kenya. Just like their global counterparts, Kenyan workers are entitled to rest periods and breaks. These moments of respite not only help maintain productivity, but also ensure the well-being of the workforce. To wrap things up, it's clear that while Kenya's work culture has its unique aspects, it shares many commonalities with practices worldwide. The standard work hours, the treatment of overtime, and the provision for rest and breaks are all testament to Kenya's commitment to maintaining a balanced and fair work environment. Understanding work cultures around the world helps us appreciate the diversity and commonality in how we approach work. Thank you for joining us on this exploration. Before we close off this video, we'd like to extend an invitation to you. If you found this video informative and want to learn more about work cultures around the world, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We regularly delve into the fascinating world of international work cultures, bringing you insights and comparisons from different corners of the globe. By subscribing, you'll get notified every time we release a new video, ensuring you never miss an update. You can also support our work by liking this video and sharing it with your friends and colleagues. Your support helps us continue our mission to educate and inform. You can also leave your comments below. We value your thoughts and feedback, and we're always eager to hear your perspectives. Remember, the dialogue doesn't have to end here. Let's continue the conversation in the comments section. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more.